Hey, what's up, everybody? I just want to give you a little video update of what's going on here. First of all, thank you for all the shares. I really appreciate it. The likes on the page have gone way up, and so have the followers. So I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. This video really is going to tell you something that you probably don't want to hear, that we just don't know yet. We just don't know yet. It's too early. It's Tuesday. When you start to talk about forecasting, yeah, we use models. There are all different types of models. There's the Euro, there's the GFS, which is the American model, the NAM, the North American model, the GGEM, the CMC. There's all the Yuki, all these different models. The JMA, that's the Japanese model. And all these models have pros and cons. Some are really great at predicting winter storms. Some are really great at predicting hurricanes. So some models are good in one season, some models not so good in the other season. But that doesn't mean that's always the case. Some of the models that you might say, well, that's a better summer model, might score a coup in the winter, might draw out a storm and predict it way in advance where other models didn't see it. So it's not that easy just to look at model runs and say, oh, this is what's going to happen. Because right now, the Euro is showing really what looks like a 45 to 60 degree rainstorm up and down the East Coast, all the way to Boston. That could happen, but other models aren't showing that. The Yuki is showing a pretty significant snowstorm over the weekend. The other thing is the models that people look at, especially folks who are not really into forecasting, you have to look at the upper atmosphere. You have to look at what's going on aloft. You can't just look at the surface. What a lot of people do is they look at the map, they look where it's called the 540 line, that's the freeze line, and they see if they're north of it. And if they're north of it, that means that they're going to get a snowstorm. That's not necessarily true. You can't always look at the surface. Same thing with looking at the surface and saying, well, the Euro is showing a 40 to 50 degree or even 60 degree rainstorm. Well, yeah, it is at the surface, but you got to look aloft, and things are changing in the atmosphere. Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the greatest map reader as far as 500 millibars. I'm okay. I could kind of see some things. But I know a lot of people who are much better than I am at that. And even those folks are saying that changes are happening aloft on the Euro, and the Euro might be starting to cave closer to the Yuki and to a more snowy situation. The other thing is you got to look at trends, what these models have, or I should say biases that they have. Over the last many years, the bias of almost every model, most of them, especially the GFS, has been to take storms and develop them to the south and east, and then progressively, as you get closer to the event, they start to come up north and west. And in fact, they a lot of times come up more north and west than even the last projection. So the trend has always been lately, over the last, I would say, decade or maybe even longer, that models have a southeast bias. Well, this year has been totally different. This year, a lot of models have been predicting snow for Philadelphia, New York, and the snow was in North Carolina, or it was in Washington, Baltimore. This past weekend we saw it. Snow did not want to come up past a certain line. It seemed to hit the Jersey Shore and Delaware, and boom, it just cut off. So, what trends are we looking at? Are we going to go with the trend of the season, that storms will be south and east of where their track should be based on model guidance? Or do we go over the past history, over the last 15, 20 years and say, well, they might come north and west? It's very difficult. It's a very difficult setup here. The other thing is what's going to happen on Saturday and Sunday really is going to be dependent on what happens on Friday. What the storm preceding it does. How strong is it? What it does when it goes past us. Where it sets up the boundary layer. There's all these different things that have to go into this. So in my opinion right now, I'm not changing a thing. I think we're going to see some snow on Friday. I don't think it's going to be a huge snowstorm, but I think we'll see snow. And then Saturday, I think we'll start out as snow, get maybe a few inches. Then there's going to be a changeover, I think. It's probably going to be a changeover to sleet and freezing rain, probably freezing rain, and at least from what I can project or what my experience tells me. Then I think there'll be a changeover to plain rain for most of the I-95 corridor. But then there's cold air rushing in behind. Now, how quickly does that happen? How much wraparound snow do we get? We don't usually do well in that situation in this part of the country. We usually are too late. The cold air comes in, it changes over to snow, but it's almost off the coast by then, so we get very little. This could be an exception to that. Depends on how fast the cold air gets in. We're also dealing with the polar vortex. How far south is it going to sag during this weekend? Nobody can tell you right now that, yes, it's going to snow, or no, it's not going to snow. It's just rain. You can't. It's impossible right now. I wish there was a better story to tell you, but it just isn't. The earliest we'll know is going to be Wednesday night. That's when we're going to start to really be able to hone in on a forecast. But until then, we're really not going to have anything set in stone. It looks like it's going to be a mix of everything right now. That can change. If every model decides to go the way of the Euro and everything goes west of us, cuts west, then it's all rain. Then we'll know. If the Euro caves to the other models, to the Yuki, and says, hey, we're going to have more of a coastal and it's going to be slightly off the coast, well, then you start to believe the colder situation, the colder scenario. Stay tuned. There's only so much we can do with model guidance, and we just have to watch it, and we'll keep on top of it. Thanks, everybody.